Sick millionaire sends death notice to his 5 children to choose an heir. No one goes except an unknown young woman. A wealthy father sends his children a letter in which he fakes his death to determine who will be his rightful heir on the day of his fake funeral. An unknown young woman arrives to mourn her death in place of her 5 children. Joaquim, a loving 70-year-old father, sent just one fateful letter, faking his death to each of his 5 children. Of course, none of them realized that their father had tricked them into determining who would be his heir. She wanted him to get to know Joaquim's family up close. She knew how hard the man had worked for his fortune. Joaquim was only 23 years old when he started his business from scratch, and he has continued to grow over the years thanks to his hard work and dedication. He always taught his children the values of hard work that bears sweet fruit, but the only thing that mattered to Joaquim's children was money. As they grew older, they despised their father's words about hard work, dismissing his wisdom as long, unwanted lectures. Over time, the children left their father's house and only asked for the credit card when they wanted him to pay the bills. The man knew very well that his children were on the wrong track, but he couldn't do much to make them understand that money is just a predetermined role. Things got worse after the death of Joaquim's wife, Angela. A few months after his death, the automatic father distanced himself even more from his children, who saw him only as a cashier on the go. Despite all this, Joaquim always missed his boys. He felt lonely and unhappy and constantly approached them, hoping that at -1 they would spend some of their time with him. One can imagine what place Joaquim would have occupied in the hearts of his children if he hadn't been so rich. The old father was depressed and didn't know where to vent his frustrations. He couldn't take it out on his children because he loved them so much that he always forgave them. He hoped they would realize that he was slowly dying from health issues. "My children came back to me sooner or later," he consoled himself often. However, several months passed and Joaquim never heard from them. They all set up their own businesses in different states. One day, the boys received an unexpected letter from their father's lawyer, informing them of his untimely death. "Please come to the funeral." His father's last wish was that he be buried in the presence of his beloved children, said one of the lines in the letter. The children smiled and dismissed him. Little did they know that their father was planning to determine which of them deserved to inherit his millionaire estate. Send letters to the lawyer, asking about the fate of your father's legacy and who got what. Of course, Joaquim was still alive, but his children didn't know it yet. It was the day of the fictional funeral. Joaquim was sitting in his armchair in the courtyard of the cemetery, anxiously waiting to see his children. "I had said the funeral would be at noon, but my kids still haven't come. It's almost time." He smiled. At that moment, Joaquim saw the silhouette of a young woman enter the door. She was dressed in black, prepared for mourning. "But I don't see any funerals here today. I came to the cemetery, correct? If I ask, do I know you, young lady?" Joaquim said. "Hello, I'm Alice and I came to the funeral of Joaquim, my fiancé's father." Joaquim replied, looking around. "I was pretty confused. I didn't see any arrangements for a funeral there. My son has a fiancée." Benjamin was scared. He never told me that his son voiced Alice, later learning that he was face to face with Xavier's father, who was very much alive. But his lawyer had sent a letter saying he had died. Why would he lie to his children? She asked. Joaquim revealed to Alice his dramatic plan to determine his legitimate heirs. "I've resolved to prepare a will and leave my fortune to the most deserving of my 5 children, but I'm surprised they don't care about me anymore. They asked me what would happen to my property after my death. I didn't answer because I was still waiting for my children to come mourn my death." Alice felt very sorry for Joaquim. It also turns out that although he convinced Xavier to attend his father's funeral, he declined. He had planned to visit the lawyer a week after the funeral to find out how much he would inherit from his father. Although Alice was deeply in love with Xavier, she was not supportive of his decisions. She quarreled with him and went to Joaquim's funeral against her fiancé's wishes. "You came to my funeral against my son's wishes." "But why, dear?" Joaquim asked. "My parents taught me to respect everyone, especially the elders. We all go. There will be a day and my heart will break if my son leaves me like this." Alice responded, bringing tears of joy to the man's eyes. Finally, Joaquim's 5 children received another unexpected letter. 2 days later, it belonged to their father, and they were surprised to learn that he was still alive and that he had left a will making another his heir. How can it be? Dad is still alive. Why did his lawyer tell us he was dead? They discussed among themselves. They ran to see their father and were surprised to see Alice with him. She was at his side, taking care of him. Alice, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be back after going to Dad's funeral. And he is alive. What is happening? Xavier complained. Joaquim refuses to speak to his children and buys excuses not to visit him. He turned a deaf ear to her pleas to modify the will as an additional insult. Alice broke up with Xavier. He returned her engagement ring and blamed her for not appreciating such a loving father. Even we will grow old one day. And what would it be like to be wronged and abandoned by your own children? Money is nothing compared to the love and blessings of older people. I don't want to continue a relationship with a man who abandoned his father and only sees him as an ATM after his breakup with Xavier. Alice stayed with Joaquim and took care of him until his last days. He never expected anything in return and didn't do favors for money. A few months later, Joaquim died peacefully in his sleep. The day after the funeral, Alice received a call from her family's attorney. If it's true, Senor Joaquim left you his fortune and will take care of your businesses and properties. It was his last wish. Please come to my office to discuss further. The lawyer told Alice she didn't care about Joaquim's money. However, Alice was considered the sole heir to the deceased's wealth. She accepted the offer to fulfill her last wish, while Joaquim's 5 children grumbled, not accepting this reality. What can we learn from this story? Don't underestimate the love someone feels for you. Joaquim's children knew how much their father loved and missed them, but they only came to him when they needed money. They just saw him as a money-making machine and didn't respect his feelings. Money is not everything. What matters most is the amount of love you have in your life. Alice fell out with her fiancé, Xavier, Joaquim's eldest son, and attended his father's funeral against his will. She believed that money is not everything in the world and that love is the most important thing in a person's life.